You're listening to the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Wyatt. Have you ever hunted in Mississippi on public lands? Well, you may not realize how many acres of public lands we have available to you here in Mississippi. Today, we're talking about that with a public lands expert here at MDWFP. He is biologist Nathan Blount.
This episode of the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast is brought to you by the Foundation for Mississippi Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks.
You're listening to the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Wyatt. You may have thought about hunting on public lands. Maybe you hesitated. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you do, and you want to learn a little bit more about it. Well, we have the person here today to talk to us that knows about it. His name is Nathan Blount. And Nathan, you've kind of spent a career here at MDWFP involved in the management areas and the public lands part of MDWFP, haven't you?
Yes, sir. I was a WMA regional biologist for over 10 years, managing a region of wildlife management areas, overseeing the management activities on them, helping set the rules and regulations. And now I'm involved in some of the draw hunt stuff. And most of my career has been spent helping out on public lands.
Public lands. So let's start with, for those listening that this may help or didn't know this, the different types of public lands that are available to hunters. I know there's several different ways they can access that. So kind of go through that with me.
Well, I'll start off with our agency managed wildlife management areas.
Okay.
We own some of these areas. We have over 50 of them spread out across the state. Others we don't own, but we manage cooperatively with entities such as the U.S. Forest Service, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Then stepping away from the wildlife management areas, we also have what we call open public lands throughout the state. And this would be lands owned by the federal government, such as the U.S. Forest Service again, but not in the WMA. There's also open U.S. Army Corps of Engineer lands, not part of WMAs that you can hunt. Other entities such as the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, they have national wildlife refuges. Over here on Ross Barnett, the Pearl River Water Valley District, even they have public land you can hunt. There's some military installations throughout the state you can even hunt. There's just a whole lot of different managing authorities that have these lands that we can utilize for public hunting.
You know, and Nathan, honestly, prior to, getting ready to talk to you today, I think if someone had said to me, public lands, immediately I think of the WMAs. Mm-hmm. That's what I think about. But these other categories, like the national forests, the federal land, even some of the military, I didn't know. I would have never known that that's also available to hunters in Mississippi. And I think you probably run into that. There's a lot of people that don't realize that, mm-hmm. First off.
There can be people who have public land, right down the road from them. They're not even aware that, there's land I can go hunt this close to the house.
Yeah.
And it's just figuring it out, where it's at, look for the closest public land to you. Make yourself familiar with the rules and regulations. That's one of the first steps. Once you find the spot you want to explore, always look up the rules and regulations first. The rules and regulations will differ according to whoever manages the land. Like our WMA rules can be a little bit different from the open public land rules. Most of your open public lands, like the open U.S. Forest Service, the open U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, they're going to follow your statewide season structure and hunting dates. And then on our WMAs, things are sometimes a little bit different. It could be a draw hunt. Our antler criteria could be different. Our bag limits could be different than the statewide.
Okay. So, and I know this is a broad answer too, but depending on where people are in the state, but how do they find that out? What's the best way to begin the process of finding out? Who do they pick up the phone and call, and where do they go?
I'd recommend first starting on our website, MDWFP.com, and under wildlife and hunting, you can go to our WMA page, and we have an interactive map there, and you can see all the WMAs throughout our state and zoom in on them and see what's in your area. Also, you can call or go to the U.S. Forest Service's website, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers website, and they'll have their hunting information posted. Nowadays, there's a bunch of hunting and mapping apps for your phone and online, and those apps are extremely useful for finding public land near you, and then that's a really good starting point.
Yeah, so I just did what you said while we were talking. It's really that quick. I went to MDWFP.com. hunting, wildlife management areas right there. And then there's the map. And so you can kind of just click on where you are in the state. So 50, did you say that's the number that's
over 50? I believe we're at 52, 53 now.
Okay. All right. So rules and regulations. Walk me through some of that. And I know you touched on it. And again, it's a broad answer depending on where we are. But what are the main things we need to know as a hunter if I'm going to start accessing public land?
Like I said, first, the rules and regulations. If you're hunting a WMA, we have a few requirements that aren't there for open public land. One of them is you have to check in and out when you're using a wildlife management area.
Okay.
We have an app for that on our phone, the MDWFP WMA check-in app. When you get to the WMA, you can check in, or if you don't have an app on your phone, you can even go to an online portal and check in before you arrive. We still have physical permit cards, at least one area on each WMA where you can get a physical permit card and manually, just write down. That's the way it used to be back in the day. Sign in, sign out. Once you conclude your hunt, you'll turn the card back in or check out on your phone and write down anything you harvested. You record your harvest data on it. Also, if you hunt on a wildlife management area, you have to have a WMA user permit. It's $15 for residents, $30 for non-residents. And other areas of public land, a lot of the National Wildlife Refuges, you also will have to purchase a permit. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, I noticed on their Tennessee Tombigbee waterway lands this year, they've put out a permit you'll need to purchase. Now, just open, like U.S. Forest Service open outside of WMA lands, you don't have to have a permit.
Okay.
And some of the other Corps of Engineer lands are like that as well.
Okay.
But that's a common thing. Probably about half of the land you're going to hunt, you'll need some type of user permit.
Most of those are a year,
yes, sir.
Year-long permit. Okay,
Well,
last year. You, Nathan, how'd you get into this? As far as, yes, in the wildlife area and being an officer and a biologist, how'd you kind of get into that? What was your career path?
Well, when I was a kid, my father had me out tromping around on public lands from a very young age, hunting locally, a local WMA actually, and about half of our hunting growing up was on public lands. And he taught me about everything I knew about deer hunting. It's paid off over the years, and went off to school at Mississippi State. And bakoodles of public land around Mississippi State, about any direction, there's some decent public land around Mississippi State. And from there, almost all my hunting was on public land. Fell in love with deer hunting from an early age, and I still remember when I wanted to become a wildlife biologist, 6th grade, had to do a term paper, and called a biologist up and answered questions and whatnot. And then, my mind was set from then on from middle school. I wanted to be a wildlife biologist. And then as I spent more and more time exploring different public lands, I really developed a passion just for public lands and the hunting opportunities and other opportunities we have out there.
Yeah. And I wonder too, being in Mississippi as it relates to public lands and public lands where you can hunt, and you did growing up, if being in Mississippi and being a Mississippian played a role in that, because it's pretty unique, the opportunities you have in terms of public lands in our state as compared to some other places, isn't it?
Yeah, especially in the South, we have, I know just within the WMA system, like over 700,000 acres of public land. And that's not counting a lot of the federal lands, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service lands. We're looking at 1 million plus acres of public land just in our state that we can hunt on.
That's incredible. That's another thing I think that probably most people wouldn't realize, until they hear an expert like you say. Is that something too from an education standpoint that you've seen in your career as a biologist and being involved in public lands, that educating our hunters of what the opportunities are and the number of acres available to them?
Yeah, it's really progressed over the past several years. With the advent of social media and these mapping apps on phones, more folks are aware of what's at their disposal. And I'm glad to see that more folks are taking advantage of the resource we have. But yeah, the past, I'd say 7 or 8 years, we are seeing a more utilization of our public lands, more utilization of our draw hunts. And technology is a big factor in that, which is a good thing. Folks know what's out there. They can find it way easier. It used to be very difficult to find information on, especially some of the open lands, the open Corps of Engineer lands. Folks just didn't know what was down the road from them.
Sure. Here's a basic question for you that some may wonder. What's a draw hunt?
Okay, we have a WMA draw hunt system. Certain areas of our state, certain WMAs, you have to be drawn to be able to hunt on these areas. And there's a few reasons for that. Number one, some of these areas are very, very popular. Like for deer, our Delta WMAs. Everybody knows the Delta grows the big bucks. Those hunts are highly coveted. And so you just don't want, a million people out there running around, tromping around the same bit of ground, screwing up other people's hunts. So we have to manage that hunting pressure. And that's where draw hunts come in. We'll set a quota for, say, 20 people can hunt on this area for this many days. And actually right now in August is the time to apply for the deer draw hunts. But yeah, you have to have a WMA user permit to apply. Go online and you can apply for the deer draw hunts. We have waterfowl draw hunts, teal draw hunts as part of the waterfowl, turkey draw hunts. This year we had to implement a draw hunt on a couple of dove fields because they were just getting a little bit too popular. I spoke with a fellow the other day who's dove field, with his WMA dove field, he likes to hunt, went to a draw, and he said he was having to get out there before daylight for a 2 p.m. hunt to try to get a spot.
Wow.
So it gotten, as you can see, it's sitting out there for 9 hours before the dove field even opens. That's kind of a bit ridiculous. And
it's dedication too on his part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just to manage the pressure and to provide quality hunting opportunities. We have some exceptional draw deer hunts, turkey hunts, our waterfowl hunts. Waterfowl hunting's gotten really big over the past several years as well, and we have some fantastic WMAs in the Delta for waterfowl hunting.
Have you seen the access, people applying for the draw, the numbers? Has that increased? Has it been pretty steady?
It's increased by a fairly large amount over the past several years. I was actually looking at draw numbers today, applicant draw numbers for our deer draw hunts, and it looks like it's kind of leveled off for this year. But we actually saw a substantial increase. And also, you've probably heard of the COVID bump and folks using the outdoors. We saw a very large increase in the number of folks applying for the draws after about 2020.
Yeah. Going back to sort of overall public lands, and obviously that being different from a club or private lands in terms of the way you access it and maybe the routine and the things you do. So from an etiquette standpoint, again, let's say that someone's listening who they're on the fence about hunting on public lands, and maybe they're going to do it. From an etiquette standpoint, what are the teaching points and the bullet points there for a hunter?
Firstly, and it kind of it differs a little bit from turkey to deer, but since it's getting close to deer season, I'll focus on deers now.
Okay.
Don't crowd anybody. Try not to crowd anybody. I would say if somebody's at the gate, move on, but we have some gates, there may be 2,000 or 3,000 acres behind that gate. And for deer hunting, it's okay, but if you see somebody at a gate, talk to them, get an idea of where they're going, and just, kind of stay away. If they're hunting the left side of the road, go over here to the right side of the road. Yeah. If you see somebody out and about, just strike up conversation. Don't be just to yourself, avoiding people, avoiding eye contact, stuff like that. Just try to be friendly, and other folks will do the same to you. You see somebody dragging a deer out, help. Just help them. Ask them if they need some help getting the deer out. And hunters, it's not a hunting club atmosphere, but it can be close to one. I've met a lot of great people over the years. I'm friends with hunting in the wood. Hunting on public land on WMAs and stuff, and keep in contact, help each other out. When it comes to turkey hunting, that kind of is one of those situations. Somebody's at the gate, it's probably best to go on to another spot because unlike deer, turkey are telling you where they're at, gobbling. And if you can, get 2 or 3 people behind one gate and there's one gobbling turkey, well, guess what? Everybody's going to crowd that one gobbling turkey, and that can be an issue, safety issue as well.
Sure.
But with deer hunting, for the most part, you're stationary. It's okay to park at a gate where other people's at, especially like I said, if there's a big chunk of woods behind it.
Yeah. I've heard people make the statement in conversations here and elsewhere that our hunters in Mississippi, they are our lead conservationists. The conservation efforts depend on them as much as anything else. In that vein, on public lands and hunters on public lands, how do you communicate to them about, taking more does and leading that effort from a conservation perspective? How do you handle that education process?
Well, there's a lot of great potential out there on our WMAs for hunting deer hunting opportunity. Bagging does is a great way to fill the freezer. And in most areas throughout the state, most of our WMAs, it's not going to be too terribly hard to go out and get antlerless deer. It helps keep the herd healthy in check. Some of our areas we have folks don't want to fool with, shooting a doe, but it's important for that herd health balance. You can see a more intense rut once that happens. And on some of our areas, we really aren't getting enough antlerless deer harvested.
And I would think too, if there's a hunter who hears that message and has a question or two, do they contact you? Is it a local biologist? If they have a question, what's the best route for them to go?
On our WMAs, you can go to our website and get a number for each WMA.
For each one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And if the same goes for other entities of public land. You can call our Jackson office here, our wildlife number, and we'll get you in contact with who you want to talk to. It'll be a WMA manager. It could be a WMA biologist. And we'll have all the answers for your questions.
I would think as a biologist, you like getting those kind of phone calls, don't you?
Oh, yeah, it's great. One of the favorite parts of my job is being able to help out fellow public land hunters and help them through the process, whether that be applying for draw hunts, checking out areas they're interested in, giving them just whatever they ask for. And whenever they thank you or you see them with a picture of a deer down the road, they send you that. They thank you for helping them with. It's good stuff.
Yeah. If there's someone listening, okay, and they haven't hunted public lands and they're on the fence, they're making that decision. There's been a little hesitation. I don't know, but they're kind of on the fence. What would you say to them?
Man, just get out there, put some boots on the ground and do it. You may hear about it being terribly overcrowded, highly pressured. Well, the truth is, as much public lands we have in the state, other than around some of the holiday times where everybody's off work, for the most part, it's generally not too overwhelmingly crowded. I mean, it's not hard to find a little area of your own. I'd recommend picking somewhere closest to your house, some place you can get to pretty quickly and easily, and just learning it. Just spend some time out there tromping through the woods, looking for deer sign, seeing if there's signs of other folks hunting the land. Just learn that area. And the more you do that, the more you're going to learn how the wildlife use that area, the more you're going to find the hot spots, the travel corridors, where the hunters hunt the most. And so it's just get out there and do it.
Mm-hmm. What about you? Do you get to go and actually do as much hunting as you used to in the job now? Not
as much as I did in college, but I still make sure to incorporate plenty of public land hunting into my schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. Deer and turkey?
Yes. Deer and turkey.
Yeah. Did you catch the turkey bug? Didn't I read that about you? You caught the turkey bug at some point?
Kind of interesting story on that. In 2004, Lee County, Mississippi, where I grew up, had their first turkey season. Very late on the scale of the majority of the state, one of the last counties to open up a turkey season. And I saw it on TV, and I told my dad, I was 14 years old. I was like, we're going turkey hunting this spring. And so that's something we got to learn together. And from that very first gobble, the first time, we had a bird close working. I mean, that was it. And immediately then I switched from a deer guy to a turkey guy. I mean, it did something to us. And we started traveling, hunting, and it's been awesome.
That's great. Well, and you're being modest. When you say traveling, hunting, you've really done some traveling and some hunting. Am I right?
Yeah, I get around, especially for the turkey.
Yeah. What was that thing about how many states? How many different states?
49 states have a wild turkey season. And as of this spring, I was able to harvest a turkey in all 49 states.
Wow. And honestly, okay, I'm an old enough guy that to me, 2004 doesn't sound like that long ago, right? You were just a young guy then, but that's a lot. That's a lot in a short amount of time.
Yeah, it started actually my high school graduation present. My parents bought me and my dad a trip to Texas to turkey hunt. And then after that, we're like, man, that was awesome. There's so much more outside of Mississippi. Mm-hmm. And so the next year, my father and I went to the Black Hills in South Dakota, turkey hunt to chase another subspecies. And then it just compiled from there. The next year we went to Florida and Missouri. And then once I got on my own, was able to, had the means to explore more states and go hunt more places. Man, my dad still would pick a new state or two a year and just hunt. And then about 2017, a book came out called Turkey Man. It was about these guys who'd gotten a turkey in all 49 states, and I read it, and I'm like, well, I have 15 or 16 states already. I think I can do this. At the time, I was like, well, as long as I get it before I retire or something, I wasn't in a hurry. But then it started becoming more popular and a little bit more difficult to get tags in some of these states, and I just sped it up and started hunting 4 or 5 states a spring, and then now here we are.
Yeah. And you're still in North Mississippi in terms of where you live?
Northeast Mississippi.
Up there in Northeast Mississippi. Do you still get to deer hunt and turkey hunt? I know I asked you this already, but going back to it, on public lands, kind of like where you started?
Well, actually, here in the past few years, I have turkey hunted one of my high school spots. Over half my hunting is still on public land, especially for deer. There's just so much land in some of these regions of the state of public land. I mean, the pressure is actually less on the public land than some of the private land. I kid you not.
Wow.
I mean, some of these areas that are, 10, 20,000 acres, there'll be portions of them, sure, that get hit pretty hard. Like I said, you can find your spot, get away from the people, especially when it comes to deer. Those older bucks, they're not going to stick around with a lot of people pressure. They know where they can go and be alone. And that's the spot you want to find.
Yeah. Right there in your neck of the woods, my family and I, we were in Tishomingo State Park a couple of weeks ago. We were driving up the hill from the big bridge, the entrance to the walking trail where the big bridge is, and right there on the left was a little buck, little 4-point with the velvet, and he'd seen some people because he just stood there and let me take his picture, and I thought, man, it was just one of those moments where I looked at it, took that picture. My daughter, who's 13, had her phone out taking pictures, and he was just standing there for us. And I thought, here's, example number 1 million why I'm thankful I live in Mississippi. And I'm right there in a state park. It was a really cool experience. You see that a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, this time of year, even out on our WMAs and stuff, those deer will still stand there at times and look at you kind of like the state park deer. But, once the hunting pressure starts, I get a lot more weary. But, man, it's great working on WMAs year round. Just seeing the cycles of everything, seeing the fawns being born, here most recently seeing the baby turkey, and then hunting season ramps up and there it gets kind of crowded, and then hunting season comes to an end and the animals start making themselves more visible again. But just seeing the life cycle take place from all these different species, just like getting dove fields ready right now, taking part in that process.
Yeah. So Nathan, looking back at your life, and you spent a lot of time on public lands hunting, do you have one experience that kind of stands out, maybe a favorite moment hunting on a WMA?
Yeah, not too many years ago, on one of our local WMAs, I'd had some game cameras out and had gotten a pretty nice buck on camera. Hunted them that year, didn't get them. Fast forward to the next year, I got him on camera again several times throughout the summer, and I kind of honed on his area. And the rut was getting close, and my dad hadn't been having too much luck that year. And so I told him, I was like, look, come up, stay with me. I know there's pretty good bucks around, and I think we may have a shot at him once the rut gets to kicking off and all. So he drove on up, stayed the night with me. We got up the next morning super early, got pretty deep in there on this tract of public. And I put him, and I thought was the best spot, kind of repaying the favor for all the help he did to me over the years, all the much he's helped me out. And I kept hiking on deep. I went another mile deeper, climbed a big hill, and I actually ran into hunters who came in off private land. So that's 45-minute walk up a hill, and then had to make a default there, and a little bit tore up over that. I'm like, man, thought nobody'd be back here. Well, about 8 o'clock, I hear a gunshot. I thought, man, I think that was my dad. And I call him up, and it was. And the very first morning I brought him in there, he got the target buck we were after.
How about that? At 8 a.m.?
Yep, at 8 a.m., just first thing that morning. It meant the world to me that I was able to repay the favors.
Yeah.
For all over the years, him teaching me how to hunt. And here we are 25 years later, me reversing it and putting him on a really nice buck. And yeah, for Christmas that year, well, the next year, maybe Father's Day, I got a big blow up print for the wall for him to hang. It had like the game cam pictures of the buck, and then him with the buck, and me and him together, our picture together with it, and that was awesome.
That's really cool. Do you have an area, public lands area, maybe a WMA that is special to you, or one that is maybe a special place that's a little unknown? How would you answer that?
There's one area, it won't be unknown for the folks who live in this region of the state, but there's a lot of historical significance behind it, and just a really, really cool place. It is our most heavily visited WMA each year, and that is the Pascagoula River WMA in George and Jackson counties down along the coast. This area was purchased, I believe it was in the 1970s, and it's totaling nearly 40,000 acres. We've had some recent acquisitions the past few years. But man, it's along the Pascagoula River system, which is one of the largest undisturbed river systems in the U.S. That means, no dams or anything like that. There's places on this WMA. I actually worked on it when I began my career with the agency. And there's places along this river where I never knew there was a place so remote in Mississippi. I mean, there's one block of it, just a giant river swamp bottom. If I remember correctly, it's like 8,000 or 9,000 acres. And it's basically boat in or come in off private land is the only way to even get to it.
Okay.
And they call it the Big Swamp. Folks down there know exactly what I'm talking about. But it just blew my mind. An area so remote. I mean, there's ATV trails through it that the agency maintains for folks, lets folks use their ATV just to get around because it's such a large area. But also in the Pascagoula River system, there's these oxbow lakes just everywhere, like 40 or 50 plus. Tons of fishing opportunity. There's a rookery on it where birds come to roost at night. Bird watching opportunities galore. Of course, hunting, fishing. There's sandbars all along the Pascagoula River. Folks will use to camp on, swim. Just endless amounts of opportunity on this WMA, and it's just such a cool place. I mean, it almost takes you back in time when you get deep in the swamp. But yeah, that one, working there, really loved the area. I spent a little over 4 years in that area, and it's very, very unique. At the time, it was MDWFP's largest, I guess it still is, the largest land purchase into the WMA system.
Wow.
Like I said, we're still able to continually add on to it here in recent years, just expanding it for the locals and anybody else who wants to utilize it.
Yeah. And it's called the
Pascagoula River Wildlife Management Area.
Yeah. And, you look it up. Again, you mentioned the map. And to those listening that haven't, it's just really cool to go to that interactive WMA map at MDWFP.com and kind of scroll around, look around. You can zoom right in. It's like, using a GPS or to look at it. And you can see the river. It's right there on the border of it, cutting right through that entire area.
Alligators galore. I never realized we had that many alligators in the state. Actually, we would, every summer, our agency conducts alligator routes. And we'll go out at night with the spotlight and get counts and size counts. And I got to help out with that a lot down there on that area. And I was like, wow, Pascagoula River has a bunch of alligators.
How about that? Kind of a toothy critter for sure. And I was doing a little reading. You had an experience. This is something you touched on earlier, talking about turkey hunting all over the place. There was a different kind of toothy critter that reacted to a turkey call. Tell me that story.
It's about 7 or 8 years ago. I was turkey hunting in New Mexico, and one evening I was out and got a turkey to gobble, so I set up on them and all, and it was kind of an open meadow below me, a Ponderosa pine meadow. And, I'd called, the turkey responded. I thought, well, we're in business. And then I heard something to my right. And the last time I heard the turkey gobble, he was in front of me. Heard it to my right. I thought, well, here he comes. And so I slowly start turning over and quickly realized that is not a turkey. Immediately knew what it was when I saw it. You hear people talk about seeing a mountain lion or panther. Well, I'm going to tell you, when you see one, you know it. I mean, 100 plus pounds. The tail looks as long as its body. And he was sneaking in, coming dead directly at me behind a pine tree. I'm talking about full on stalk mode, coming to that turkey call. And my first thought was, I've got to get this on video or nobody will ever believe me. Yeah. So I whipped out my phone, and got it to video. And then he saw me. And he turned and kind of walked parallel looking at me. And in the phone video, it's clear as day. You can tell that is a mountain lion. He was about 70, 80 yards. And I wasn't really nervous or anything at first. But then whenever he circled me and got out of sight behind a hill, I did get a little bit nervous.
Right. Because then, he gets out of sight, but he knows exactly where I am.
And he had the uphill advantage. And he could sneak closer. But yeah, that unnerved me a little bit. But that was one of my top outdoor experiences as well. That was really cool seeing him doing his thing and realizing he was coming for me with the turkey.
Does an experience like that totally interrupt the turkey hunt for that day?
Oh, it did that day, but I'd give up the turkey hunt for that experience again in a heartbeat. That was pretty incredible.
That's pretty cool. I have to get you to send that video to Chip for the edit and the picture of your dad with the deer. Mm-hmm. That would be great.
I don't think anybody, like everyone, would consider being stalked by a mountain lion as being an exciting experience.
Awesome experience.
Yeah. Oh man, it was
only biologists maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said he wasn't scared. I probably would have been my heart would have started to beat fast.
When he was at the distance, I wasn't. But like I said, whenever he dropped off below the hill, and I'm like, man, he could be up above me 50, 60 yards away quickly.
Right.
And that's when I got a little unnerved.
You got out of there when that happened?
I hung around, but I'm not going to say I didn't stand around there like this. Well, then it got even crazier. I heard something running, and some elk came running by me, and my first thought was he's chasing those elk, even though it was the opposite direction.
The same moment?
Yeah, like not long after that happened, but he wasn't behind the elk. But I'm talking about 3 bull elk just ran by me at like 30 or 40 yards. I mean, the whole hunt was just crazy. After that, I'm just like, man.
How about that? That's neat. Nathan, it's a real treat to get to talk to you. It's always fun to talk to someone who not only has the knowledge, but the passion for what they're talking about. I can see it when you smile ear to ear. We talk about those experiences growing up and your dad introducing you to it. So it's great to meet you. Thanks for a little bit of time and appreciate what you do.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Yep. He is Nathan Blount here at MDWFP, public lands expert and quite the turkey hunter as well. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you outdoors.